Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Thank Furlough. It's Friday. Yep, end of another week. Although I have to say, like you, like me, probably you're sitting there thinking, well, these days are blending very much into one another. And I was speaking to somebody the other day who was having a week's holiday and said they'd never known so much indifference at all. You know, nothing had changed. It was just same old, same old. But yeah, they'd had a week's holiday apparently. So I suppose not answering the phones and not coming onto Zooms and meetings that way is something. But anyway, I'm delighted again to have back with me Jacquie. Hi, Jacquie. Jackie's got some updates for you. And I suppose the best thing to do is really just get straight into that so that those of you in a hurry to finish your week and disappear off to another room for the weekend or whatever it is you do, you can do that. Jacquie, over to you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Lovely to be with you again. Today is the day that HMRC are supposed to be giving us some more information on the flexible furlough, but it hasn't arrived yet. I'm just checking emails because I've got emails coming in, and I'm expecting an email from HMRC any moment now, but it probably won't come till 4:30, which is what happened to the last update, which is absolutely no use to us at all this afternoon. A couple of things I want to mention before we start looking at questions and answers. The newsletter's gone out today, and there is a link to the tax agent update, which is now available, but there's quite a few interesting things in that I'd like to pick up that you probably need to look at. Let me leave that one to the end. If you have a lifetime ISA, now these are mainly aimed at younger people who are saving either for deposit for a house or for their future, i.e. into some form of a pension. If you withdraw on that, at the moment the tax due on that is 25%. Now it's been temporarily dropped to 20%, possibly for about 3 months, but I'm not sure. I haven't seen the end date yet. So if you've got anybody that's got one of those, they want to take it out, then at the moment, the tax has been reduced, but you've still got to pay 20% on withdrawals. Deferring tax payments. Now, the update doesn't actually say which tax payments these are, but there are some deferred tax payments that have been extended past the original date to the end of June. The SAT payment has been deferred to January 21. That's no news there, but just to point out that if your client already has an agreement to pay deferred tax on a payment plan, you need to include any other deferred tax in that. Otherwise, it's got to be paid by the deadline. So just watch out exactly what's happening as far as that. If you have a client who has sold a property and there's capital gains tax, just a confirmation that for all sales that were made from the 6th of April, the tax due on capital gains on such a property, so it's residential properties if you're UK based, and all properties if you're not UK based, not a UK resident. Whereas before the tax had to be paid on the self-assessment return, it now has to be paid within 30 days of the completion of the sale. So if you're involved in that, or you have a client that's involved in that, or you're doing the tax return for that, then please make sure you have to get your calculations done in plenty of time. It has to be done online, it has to be reported online, completely new portal, I think, for reporting that. Now, for properties that have been disposed of since April to June, if you are late with the payment, there will be no penalty because of COVID-19, but if you sell your property from the 1st of July and you are late in paying, you will get a penalty notice issued. So again, update on that. And if you have a client who's a non-resident, they must report all disposals, even if there is no profit made or if they have made a loss. So HMRC want to know about all disposals under capital gains, whether or not, if it's a foreign resident, regardless, they've got to be notified of every single sale. Okay, couple of other things before I get on to the COVID stuff. The agent forum, I have mentioned this before, and I have done something in a newsletter before this. The HMRC agent forum is a useful tool for you if you're a tax agent and you want to get some up-to-date information or give some feedback on general information to HMRC. It's a private online service with HMRC for tax agents who are members of a professional body. So if so for our members, that's great because you can log into it and you use it to raise issues and to read about ongoing issues. These are general, fairly large-scale issues that other tax agencies can raise or you can raise. And it's not to be used for individual client inquiries, but it can also be used to putting ideas forward to improve the operation of the tax system. So that's useful. If you haven't already signed up for that, that's a useful one to sign up for. And this one isn't in the newsletter. This came into my emails this morning. This is to do with the dreaded Brexit. It's a new one. There will be, as you're probably aware, some changes made to invoicing and transporting goods between Great Britain and Northern Ireland once the Brexit is sorted. So this is, I think, going to work both ways. So for Northern Ireland members who have clients selling or buying from, and for Great British residents selling and buying from Northern Ireland, HMRC are looking for some feedback on how this currently works and how you deal with it. I will get some details up in an article, or we'll link it out to you somehow.
Right.
They're looking at some form of a registration system so that you can feed into the system. And then as details emerge of what the changing regulation is going to be with trade, you will be notified directly. So that's going to be an interesting one for you to sign up for. That's all I have on non-COVID-19 stuff.
Just something
yeah.
then, Jackie, going further, just to say that we have heard for a long time that HMRC is going to be looking very much more carefully at people that they are allowing to be tax agents, which is great for us. They're very keen to look for professional body members. And those of you who have recently applied to become tax agents or renew your license, you will know that you are now being asked to send a copy of your practice license. So it's very important that we get your license out to you, obviously, that you hang on to that, but then you use that to prove that you're a member of ICB. So this is all part of the professionalisation of everything that we do, and they're keeping an eye on us, and they will, even though you send them the license, they will check with us to make sure that it is a proper license, just in case you bought it on eBay. Not that you would, but anyway. So that's another step in the right direction as far as I'm concerned. What about you, Jackie? It's something we've wanted for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's they're looking at the whole role of tax agents at the moment. I've got a meeting with HMRC about this on Wednesday next week, I think, to discuss the next stage of it. And if we get any information that we can publicise, then we will do. But at the moment, that's all fairly confidential, so we're not allowed to get it out to members yet.
No, we've just got into trouble, by the way. We published something on SARS, which apparently was restricted, and we put it on the website instead of just sending it to our members by email. So we've had a slightly curt email telling us get that off your website. This is
I'm always very. I had a fairly major fallout with HMRC about what we could and couldn't say, and then at the last minute they changed their minds because they put it up on their website and they told us we couldn't. So yeah, we works both ways. Yeah. Okay, so COVID-19 update stuff. We've talked in the past about people coming back from furlough on who've been on statutory maternity pay or any form of paid statutory leave, so SPP, anything like that. Then they can be then furloughed once they're back. But there's been some information came out last night about, and it's in the tax agents update, about what happens if you have an employee who's going on to maternity leave on or after the 25th of April. Now that date is quite significant because it's to do with working out what their maternity pay will be. And if you count back, those of you, I'm not going to go into it because it's incredibly complicated, but there is a period of 8 weeks prior to you going on maternity leave. I think it's the 8 weeks prior to the 15th week before the baby's due. So it's a nightmare. And you work out the average weekly earnings, and that's what you base your S&P on. Now, counting back, we're now in the furlough period, And people have been asking, what do we work out the average weekly earnings on? It's quite well explained in the tax agent's update. So what you have to do is you have to look in the 8 weeks. When you're calculating your average weekly earnings, you can take the higher of either the furloughed wage that you've already calculated if they've been furloughed, or the wage that they would have, or the weekly income that they would have got if they hadn't been furloughed. Now that's an interesting one, because the standard calculation includes things like bonuses and commissions, which furloughed wage doesn't. So it may very well be that it's likely that your calculation for average weekly earnings for S&P might be the higher, but it is probably likely to be the higher of what their wages were. So that's that one. I've done that one. Don't forget, with the flexible furlough, that starts on the 1st of July. The last date for claiming the first set of furlough payments up to the 30th of June is actually the 31st of July. So that's only 6 weeks away. So you do need to start making sure that if you're making those CJRS claims, they are up to date, because you cannot claim after the 31st of July for any period up to and including the 30th of June. That's that one. The second SAYS payment we talked about last week, that's due to be claimed in August. Again, please remember that the first claim has to be made by the 13th of July, which is only 4 weeks away. We've had a lot of discussions about whether our members should or shouldn't be claiming for themselves. This is not talking about their clients, this is talking about our members. And there's been a lot of discussions about the ethics of what and how to claim if you're still working really hard. And we've discussed that, and I don't particularly want to go into that again. But you do have to make your first claim by the 13th of July, otherwise you won't be able to make a claim.
We are getting a lot of problems from our members on this. I think anybody read my blog this time, my column in the newsletter under Don't Do As You're Told. Clients are really putting a lot of pressure on some of our members to falsify claims.
Yeah.
They're sort of leaning on a little bit and saying, yeah, but unless I do this, the business won't survive and everything else. And it's really bad for the small business. But we've said that as our members are professionals, they can't do that. They can't help somebody break the law. So they must be very careful. And one of our members, as I think I said in the blog, working with a client for 13 years, and basically she had to walk out of his office pretty quickly because she thought he was going to start getting violent. It's really quite nasty. But thankfully they seem to be few and far between. But if any of you have got problems like this, come and talk to us and we'll see what we can do. But basically, I think you just have to walk away from it, and we've got to start reporting these people. But don't be pregnant.
Yeah, I've spoken to a couple of members in the last week to 10 days that are finding that the relationship that they've had with their clients is definitely changing, in some cases for the worst. And I know these clients are very worried, but they do seem to be taking it out on our members and blaming our members for an awful lot of things that they can't do, which is very sad. You do need to be aware, and this is being publicised quite a lot, there are quite a lot of scams going on at the moment about the COVID-19 various claims and grants. HMRC have identified at least 80 fairly major scams that are going out mostly by text message or by emails. So again, I'm sure you're aware of this, don't fall for them. As we know, these scams are getting more and more sophisticated and more realistic.
There's a couple of other scams actually not linked to COVID, but I was talking to Louise Templeton this morning, and she was just saying that as we were talking almost, she got an email saying that as she was a Xero user, these people wanted to talk to her because they got the special add-on that was backed by Xero, and it would stop her having to do all her work and various other things. And they got her name from somewhere, not from us. She could tell by the name that it wasn't from us, but I think people are sitting around with not a lot to do, and this, these scammers and whatever. So they are trying to get money out of people, and basically they wanted a monthly fee, or just give us your check account, your bank account details, and it's all easy, it's all simple. Be very careful. There's a lot to be careful about at the moment, but then again, there always was with being a bookkeeper, I suppose.
I think the only other update I've got is the little one on with everybody working at home and people are perhaps updating their computers or buying equipment to work at home. That is being reimbursed by the employer to enable them to work at home. There is no tax on the benefits of those at the moment, so it's not being taxed as benefit in kind if your employer is contributing towards the cost of you. I remember that one when my computer packs up, Gary.
So yeah, do you just not mention that? That's not.
I was going to say, perhaps.
You don't have to mention it on a P11D or anything. Then you don't put it on as a zero.
No, it doesn't have to be mentioned at all because it's not that. But just a reminder that P11Ds and P11DBs are due by the 6th of July if you're into that. So one if you're payrolling and one if you're not payrolling. And the tax allowance. Sorry, just the last one. The no benefit charge for home equipment continues until the 5th of April next year, so it's till the end of this tax year. So those are my updates, quite a lot there. So it's start to have a look.
A few questions there now, Barry. Anyone that has been furloughed can take advantage of the part-time returning criteria on 1st of July. What happens if someone has been on furlough and qualified previously, but he's back on full-time play, but then furloughed, say on the 20th of June? Will they have to be on full furlough for 3 weeks first before they can go on to part-time furlough, or can they go on part-time furlough for the 1st of July?
The rules have not changed. So I think if they go on to furlough again on the 20th, you're not going to be able to claim for them, because up until the 30th of June, if you are furloughing someone, you have to furlough them for a minimum of 3 weeks. And that's why the 10th of June, which is now passed, has been brought into play. So I think until the 30th of June, the rules still apply. There is no change. Where the change is that from the 1st of July, you can part furlough them, and you have to only do it for a minimum of 1 week, but they have to have been already furloughed in a previous period. So you can't add anybody new on. Now, there is one exception to that, which I picked up this morning, and that is for staff returning back from paid statutory leave. So if, for example, you have somebody coming back from statutory maternity leave, they may or may not have been furloughed, but you can furlough them. And there is proof of that because you've been claiming their SMP through your RTI, and that is one of the reasons that you can ignore the 3-week rule prior to the 30th of June. But no, I've got a funny feeling that it's got to be, you've got to wait till the 1st of July, which is only a week, and put them on part furlough.
One there from Matt. Afternoon, all with a smiley face. Did my first mock yesterday, 91%, not too bad, room for improvement. Matt, I like the fact that you said there's room for improvement. That's great. Always aim high, but very well done anyway. We always try and encourage people, if you've been listening earlier in the week, to try and take a couple of these just to make sure that you've got it to pat, and then straight into the exam itself. And
the statistics have always shown that if you do an ICB mock and then you do, even if you do quite badly, it shows you what you're involved in, and you will go up, I always said, a minimum of 5% from the mock to the live. So yeah, we're looking at a 9% increase there for you, Matt. Well done. Well done.
Cat Cowan. Hi, holiday pay. Kathy Owner has workers who accrue holidays Jan to March this year in excess of holidays taken. We've then calculated holidays accrued through furlough. He wants to pay the holidays accrued January to March at the NMW applicable, normal minimum wage applicable at the time, then use the new national minimum wage for the holiday accrued April onwards. Can he do that, or should he use the new minimum wage, national minimum wage rate when holidays are paid this month?
Right, now, funny enough, this is the second time I've seen this query this week, because I've just answered one of these. The answer is, I'm not 100% certain, but we are still in a full-time furlough situation, and the rules of furloughing have not changed. So whatever you're paying on furlough, at the moment until the 13th of June, then I think you pay what you were going to pay anyway, and you have to pay it 100%. But once you've calculated your furlough wage and they're taking holiday in the furlough period, common sense would say to me that you pay them exactly the same. The fact that we're now past April doesn't change it, because the rules of furloughing haven't changed. I mean, you can pay them more if you want to, but you can't claim back any more than 18% of what their furloughed wage was. So if you're going to be really kind and you want to pay them a bit extra, that's fine, but it's going to come out of your own funds or your client's funds. If anybody thinks differently to that, please do come back and, put a comment up. I'm sure we'll get some, but common sense would say that the rules of furloughing haven't changed, therefore let's go with what we've always gone with.
Now, I've got one here from Alice Mason. She's come through on our Facebook questions here. Not quite sure I understand it quite. Hello, we had a call from a gentleman pretending to be from HMRC, saying that the client owes £3,000 on tax. Once asked for a letter to post to the client, he hung up. So emails and messages don't, Yeah,
so they'll use whatever means they can, calls. The calls, these ones been going on around for a long time. I think they're just using the current situation. As Gary said, they're sitting around, it seems that the scammers are not furloughing themselves, they're still working. So,
well, they may be following themselves, but still working. But now, crooks after all, but
yeah.
there's some funny people around, honestly. I mean, staying up to it.
Okay, that's all the questions.
So,
you're being very quiet this afternoon, everyone.
Yeah, on my blog this week that came out yesterday, those of you who had time to read it, I started off by saying, do as you're told, and then followed up with, don't do as you're told. Under the do as you're told, I was talking about some of the information we're getting back at the moment from a few unhappy clients who are saying that our bookkeepers got a bit lazy and expect them to do all the work and just send it off to them and then do the year-end accounts. And, I've often said that we are in danger of becoming accountants if we're not careful. But just to say that those of you who have sent me a response, thank you so much for that. I haven't had a chance to read many of them yet, but I am starting to make my way through. But just to give you an idea, we've had a few at the moment. So Joanne Quell, Margaret Crawford, Sandra Douglas, Laura Miles, Gillian Sly, Linda Young, Will Ames. There is a list here, but thank you all for coming back. We're going to use it as part of our decision-making process at this end to see what we can do. We do need to work towards automation as a profession, but not if it's going to upset the client, because at the end of the day, the client pays us. And we just need to be careful that we keep our unique selling point, which is this closer relationship we have with the people, their business, and at the end of the day, their accounts. And it's all very well giving somebody a piece of software and say, just photograph it, send it through. Even that's too much for some people. They just don't want to be involved. So I'm afraid if, I use the analogy of the gardener so many times. If a gardener turned up and said, here we are, here's the mower, I'll call back for it tomorrow night, I wouldn't be very impressed. And likewise with this. So,
Sarah Douglas has just come back. Hi, Sarah. You shouldn't be asking your client to do the bookkeeping. No, I absolutely agree. I did have almost the opposite. I took a lovely long conversation with a member. I'm not going to mention her name, but if you're listening, you know who you are, who has been contacted by a number of new clients who've had their tax returns done by accountants over the years. And the accountant perhaps has retired, and they've come to this particular member and said, right, we'd like you to do our tax return. Here's all my accounts, because I've already done it. I've done all the bookkeeping myself. We had a long conversation about how much investigation you should do into those books and accounts and paperwork before you actually produce the tax return, and not just to take everything for granted, particularly if they're not prepared to give you things like business bank statements, or if they don't have a business bank statement. And this particular member and we are going to follow this up, I think, fairly formally. I haven't passed it on to Garry yet, but we need to follow this up fairly formally, because they're being asked to just accept figures that they're being given and just do the tax return and nothing else. And we're far more than that. And we had a long conversation about the legalities and the ethics and the fact that if you're doing a tax return, you're putting your name to it, and you need to be absolutely convinced that those income figures are correct.
Don't touch it with a barge pole, as they say. If somebody's telling you, this is what I've earned, no, definitely not. You have to have a look at their bank account.
I think,
and if it's personal, they should show you their personal account as well.
This particular member,
take the numbers out.
Yeah, this particular member did point this out, but then was told that the amount she was charging because of the time she was taking to check everything out was far too high, and he wasn't going to use her anymore. So,
right. Well, if that happens, get in touch with us, because that sort of person you have to report.
I will. Yeah.
The chances are go and find a bookkeeper that's not as scrupulous as you are, and they'll start using that bookkeeper and money. We've all got to stick together in this. Somebody gave me a useful analogy today. It was actually Paula Beasley-Smith I was talking to, and she said, people say, well, it doesn't make much difference. And I say to you, yeah, but if you saw somebody in a sweet shop and they were taking a couple of bags of sweets, is that theft or not? Oh, yeah, well, I report that. Okay. So if somebody's doing something wrong in their tax, you've got to report that as well. There's no difference. No. It is not. The thing to look at it is you are not expected to make that decision. That decision has already been made for you. You know what the decision is. So you just follow the rules, and that's you as a professional doing that. And it's very important that happens. And we quite often get asked, I've got a client that he's hiding some money or he's putting into expenses. It isn't very much. It's only a couple of hundred, or it's only a couple of thousand. But I mean, we've got 100,000 clients. If you multiply that by £10, that's £1 million. If you multiply that by £100, 10 million. Exponentially, it's just incredible. So no, we've got to make sure that we do this properly. And the other thing to remember is the taxman needs a lot of money because he's paying a lot out. So we all have to pay this back at some stage.
I've got a funny feeling that HMRC are going to start doing an awful lot more chasing of past tax bills. They've got to close that.
Close the loop, yeah. Yeah,
there is a question in from Gold Accounting. Good afternoon, Gold Accounting. Sorry, joined the webinar late. I have a tea room question about part furlough. They're working towards opening 4th of July and want to know if they can bring staff back for core hours and claim furlough hours for the hours rather than days. The days is only an example. I think if you're bringing people back for 2 hours, furloughing them for 4 hours a day, then you just claim the proportion, you pay them, and then you furlough them for the rest of the time. So it's not, I don't think it's definitely days. It's just that people tend to use days as an example because people will work a daily rate rather than an hourly rate.
We seem to have a lot of tea room clients. So
yeah,
we need to find out an institute of tea room operators or something else and advertise our services to it. Amazing.
Juliet has come in on the Facebook. Does the VAT deferment period include this coming quarter, filing date 7th of July? I'm literally just trying to check the final date now. I've got a feeling it doesn't include it, but I'm just looking up. So if you just bear with me 1 second, I will. It's payments due between the 20th of March and the 30th of June are the ones that have been deferred. So there is no update that I'm aware of that says for the VAT return quarter ending 30th of June. No, this will be May, with the filing date the 7th of July will be included. I think it was February, March and April. So the payment deferment goes up to the 20th, she says checking again, the 30th of June. You can defer all payments due until the 30th of June. So,
how are we doing with your panels, Jackie? Have you started those?
I have contacted people. As I said a couple of weeks ago, there are a few people still who have asked to join. Well, I'm just waiting for confirmation that I can invite you onto the group for a number of reasons. But I think I've now contacted everyone who has been cleared, and we're going to try and set up a meeting. I've just been asking them for times. The CIS changes have now been deferred again from October to March. So we've got a little bit more lead-in time for the introduction of the new CIS scheme, but I'm hoping to have those first two groups either, I think the first meeting will be next Thursday, online meeting I'm planning for next Thursday on one of the following Tuesday. So it looks like it's going to be Tuesdays and Thursdays at about 11 o'clock, which is a fairly good time.
Yeah, okay.
So the ones that I haven't yet contacted, I will be in touch with you on a one-to-one basis. So yeah, we're getting there, and I'm in correspondence with people.
Barry, peak again. So is May the final quarter that can be deferred from June quarter? It's back to normal.
Yeah, from the June quarter.
May, that's the final quarter.
It's May is the final one, because then the deadline for that takes you on to the 30th of June. So
Anna says, I have a client who's opening her company back on the 1st of July. Even though there are only 4 in the office and there is plenty of space for them to be 2 meters apart, one of the employees was asked originally to self-isolate as she is diabetic. And even though she is needed in the office, she doesn't want to come back to work. I think the thing is, can she actually continue to work from home? But I think she's got the right to ask this, hasn't she? I
think we talked about this last week, didn't we? Because if people are feeling unsafe and they are vulnerable, then I think there is still the discussion to be had about either remaining on furlough or working from home. Because the rule still is, although you can go back, there will be a lot of businesses, and as I think as Garry said last week, within the ICB offices, it's quite difficult to have this 2 meter rule throughout the whole of the offices. That you can't necessarily bring everybody back, and this is really why the part-time furloughing has come in as well, to bring people back on a part-time basis and work from home part-time, furlough part-time.
Did you answer Dilip Patel? Can we bring back a current furloughed employee, be on leave for more than 3 weeks, on the 15th of June, and furlough them part-time after the 1st of July?
Oh, I missed that one.
Yeah, I did. I think I skipped past.
Where's that one?
It's above Barry when he said.
Can we bring back a current furloughed employee on leave on June 15th and furlough them part-time? No, I think it had to have been by June the 10th, because the rules at the moment until the end of June was you have to have a minimum furlough period of 3 weeks. So the 15th doesn't give you a full 3 weeks. They've got to draw the line somewhere.
Yeah. Paula Halliday, revat due 7th of July. I looked into this and it was just deferred for
February, March and April. That's what I thought. I don't think it's been extended. It's those 3 months, which gives you April submitted by 7th of June and paid by then. But there are also, the reason that the payment date has been extended to the 30th of June is, I think, for people who do monthly VAT returns, because they've got to get that May one in, which is due by the 30th of June.
Dilip's gone into a bit more detail there. Can I furlough an existing furloughed employee part-time from the 1st of July, let's say 2 days a week, and bring back, I won't give you his name, for 2 days a week?
Yes, you can do. Yeah, you can be as flexible as you want to be. So bring your furloughed workers back part-time, leave some of them on full furlough, whatever. What you have to be sure about, though, and I'll reiterate what we said last week, I think it was Hamish said last week, that you've got to make sure that when you're doing part-time furloughs that you are following all the rules of discrimination, equality and everything else, because employment law takes precedence. You have to make sure that if you're starting to select who comes back and who doesn't, that it's agreed. And going back to the question of the employed member of staff who feels unsafe about coming back, it may very well be that if you are, say, you may have to start talking terms and conditions. I don't know about that one.
RBS Mentors HR, says Sarah Douglas, said staff have to prove with doctor's note that they cannot work. So again, that's standard employment law, isn't it?
Yes, I mean, I thought in the early days that HMRC were not saying they were not requesting a doctor's note, a fit note, but that may have changed. But again, it goes back to the contents of the employee contract and what the contract says. That will take precedence.
She says a little leg on because of risk,
for example. I mean, it's possibly worthwhile getting a doctor's note. I mean, I think they probably charge you for it these days. That's if you can get one, if you can get into your doctor's. But I'm sure if you ring them up, you know, it might be very well worthwhile trying to get hold of one. Because if you've got evidence from your doctor that you can't go into work, but you can work from home, then you can either still be furloughed or work from home, I think.
Yeah. Graham, hi, I'm not sure the last quarter for VAT deferral is quarter to April. Does that mean, Graham, that you've heard something else? I'm not quite sure what that...
Yes, the last VAT deferral is the quarter up to the end of April. So it's February, March and April, those 3 months were the only 3 months that you were allowed to defer the VAT payments for. So May and June are probably going to have to be paid, yeah.
And Sarah just comes back on again to say they would have the shielding letter if they're not allowed to work, actually from the NHS.
Yeah. If there's a shielding letter from the NHS, if it's shielding, then I think that's probably very different.
Nice to hear from you, Sarah. Hope all's going well with you. You were doing pretty well when this all started out, getting money for your clients. I hope things are still going well up in sunny Scotland. Anything else cropping up at the moment, Jackie?
No, I think we're up to date. We've got nothing on the coming from Facebook, and I think we've answered all the questions on the questions and answers.
Yeah, I think we have. There was 17 up there at the moment. So, so just to give you a bit of an insight into what's going on next week, I'm afraid I don't have too much to be able to tell you at the moment, because we've got a lot of people that we're vying with to get on. But we will, during the week, be doing something special about Luca, because the Luca Awards will be going ahead. We are not quite sure how, but they're going to be going ahead. And so therefore we need to get your applications in, because winning a Luca, whether it's offered to you virtually or otherwise, is still a Luca, and it's very, very important. In fact, Sarah Douglas, who just mentioned, I think she got 3 nominations, I think it was, before she finally won her Luca, but she did say that even getting the nomination was worth its weight in gold. So it's worth having one, and we're going to talk through with you what you need to be looking for. Make sure that you look at your firm or you and decide whether you're eligible for any of the awards, and the sort of expectations we have of what you will say about yourself and how you will do it. I mean, things have gone... well, it's just increased over the years. Last year we had videos, we had big reports, we had PowerPoint presentations. So the standards has increased substantially, and it does mean that you think that would make life easier for us. Actually, for our judges, it makes it a little bit harder because they've got so much good stuff to go for. But there will be, I think there'll probably be 1 or 2 more awards that we'll be announcing for the first time. I don't know. I'm not completely in.
Sarah's just come back, Gary. Super busy, got 23k for a client last week and 200,000k for another client that was covered in the Scottish Herald and Financial RBSU. So everything going well. Fabulous.
Yeah, well done, Sarah. That's fantastic. I mean, Sarah moved into big offices a while back, and you know, she's been a great supporter of ICB, and she's really done her stuff. My only regret is she's so busy she doesn't have time to come down and talk to us as often in the UK, in England. But anyway, it's all right. I'm sure we'll see you at the conference one way or another, virtually or really. I don't know which way that's going either at the moment. I mean, the thing is, this lockdown is such an unknown quantity at the moment. We were thinking that people would be locked down until November, December. Now everybody's turning around and saying, "Oh, well, by next week it'll all be over." And I noticed last night, Jill and I went out for our walk, and it was actually getting quite busy. Not quite as busy as it used to be, but a lot more people that have been around there for a while. So I'm hoping we don't all mess this up and come out too quick and infect everybody. So anyway, so we'll see how that goes. No news from your HMRC contact then, Jackie?
No, nothing's coming yet. Let me just check what the emails are. No, nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing in yet. Right,
well,
okay. Just a couple of quick follow-up comments. One from Anna. The shielding letter was originally 12 weeks. Has this been extended? I haven't heard, Sarah, you might know the answer to that one. And perhaps if anyone knows the answer to the shielding letter being extended, if there was a closing date, it's not something I've been familiar with. So anyone that's got an answer to that one would be grateful. And Dilip's back. Employee has been on furlough for April and May until the 20th of June. Can we bring them back on the 21st of June and furlough them part-time from 1st of July? Yes, you can, because if they've been furloughed prior to the 30th of June, then you can furlough them part-time. So if you brought them back maybe full-time to help get your premises ready, but you only want them to work part-time from July, I think that's fine. Yeah, that falls within the rules, Dilip.
Now, Juliet McKenna's come back on saying, does the VAT deferment period include this coming quarter? Filing date, the 7th of July,
No.
as period up to the end of June. So do you want to get it up to the end?
And it's only to the end, need to work out the dates. It's for those quarters that the payment is due up to the 30th of June. So if your payment for that is due after the 30th of June, which I think includes the May quarter, because that's due May, June, that's due on the 7th of July, that's outside the scope. I haven't heard that it's been extended. So no, the May and June quarters have to be paid. It's only the first 3 months that have been deferred. Oh, Sarah has come back on the shielding. It's different in Scotland. Nicola has announced all people who are covered by shielding until the 31st of July. And shielding's been extended to the 16th of August in Wales. Well, Scotland and Wales are always ahead of us in getting their announcements out like that. I haven't heard anything for England. So if anyone has England and Northern Ireland, yeah, please let us know. It's not
interesting to see Sarah's on first name terms with Nicola Sturgeon, but
I wasn't going to say that.
No,
Sarah, I'm not sure on English law either. So, Gold Accounting, apologies, my internet dropped out. Does MLR training come under furlough rules? And do they have to do this at home, or can they do it in the office?
MLR training can be delivered in any form, providing it's something which people learn from. So they can do it at home, they can do it while they're furloughing. It's a good opportunity to train people, I suppose, where if they're not working full-time, you furloughed them, but you're paying some salary towards them. So therefore, I think you could certainly get them to do that. I mean, if you go onto our website and pick up any of the MLR information, just ask them to go through it. It's always good for people to know as much as they possibly can. And I know it's not the most thrilling read in most cases, but it's there and it should be used. The other thing to do, just so that you cover yourself as the management of the business, is tell them to have a look at something, then ask them a few questions and note down what their answers are, make sure they get the numbers right, and then file that so that whenever we do drop in to say hello, any of our lovely inspectors come in and want to shake hands, then you can say to them, I know they've been reading it because this is the questions, these are the questions they answered, this is the answer sheet, and they knew this, and obviously the date that they did it, so that if the inspector says to one of them, have you had any training on MLR? And they look at him blank and say, no, don't think so. You'll be able to say, oh, yes, you did. So,
you just have to be careful, I think, with how they do the training, because if it's training that they have to do as part of their work, then you've got to pay them the time, because if you're in training, you have to be paid. But if it's something they're doing voluntarily to update, then yeah, I think they can still do it on furlough.
So that's more formal training, though, isn't it? You know, if they're like they're doing an apprenticeship or anything else, or whatever it might be. Yeah, okay.
And if they're doing formal updates, like they're doing a formal first aid course or something like that, because it has to be done. I think that has to be paid. Barry's just come back with the link to the VAT deferral. Yeah, that's the page I've got. Barry, thank you for that. That's the one I found. Let's just go through this for everyone. You can only defer quarterly and monthly VAT returns, payments for the period ending February, March and April, payments on account due between 20th of March and 30th of June, and annual accounting, advance payments due between 20th of March and 30th of June. And it doesn't cover VAT-MOS or import VAT. So yes, for your VAT quarters, if your VAT quarter ended 30th of April, then that's fine. Otherwise, you've got to pay it.
And I think Lewis has just come back and he's checked on the HMRC website as well, so that's all right. Don't forget, anybody that hasn't been with us for all 46 of our programs so far, you might have missed some of the early stuff. If you want to see all this together in one place, you can go on to the ICB website, bookkeepers.org.uk. Under the little bars across the top, there's one resources. If you hit resources and go in there, then you've got the COVID hub, and it tells you everything that Jacquie has been telling us for the last 11 weeks, isn't it? Something like that. And therefore, it's all there. Make sure you read the latest first, because that's the updated stuff. But it's a fantastic resource. There's such a lot of information in there.
Sorry, Gary, was that the COVID hub?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've updated it actually this week. And if you go through it, the updates that have come out in the last week are in red now. So as we change it, any changes are in red, so they're easy to see. And what I've also done today is I've updated the list of frequently asked questions. The answers have come through from our legal people, the legal technical line, and they've given us their answers to the questions, and I've updated that this morning. So we are completely up to date at the moment. But if you want to go on that, the updates are in red. And as I'm doing the updates, I'm leaving them dated so that you can see exactly what's been updated from the original one.
We got a good feedback last week when the lady came on from Quest. She answered quite a few questions that we'd sort of hedged our bets on a little bit because they were more employment law, so that went down well.
Yeah, Barry, thanks for your comments. And Lewis, yes, Lewis has confirmed that you can only defer VAT periods in June, February, March and April. So
I think that's probably us wrapped up for the day, Jacquie. I don't know if there's anything else.
I think the questions are going around now. Again, email queries in, I'll deal with them as quickly as I can. I think I'm up to date with them at the moment.
Trouble is, every time you say we're just about to disappear because the questions are finished, there's another one there. Can the video we watched as part of the Inspire tour be downloaded as MLR training? Gold accounting, yes, provided you've still got access to it. You can pay, I think it's something like, is it £12, £14 to keep on with that. We use an external company to do it all so that we don't lose our bandwidth. So you need to pay something for that. But yeah, no, absolutely use it as training. It's good stuff. And yeah, it's great to do that, please. The more training, the better. It's a good time to give people training, as Jacquie said. Nothing too formal, because otherwise people are working. But if you can say this is available, we think that it'll be something interesting for you to look at, and it would help you do your job better. I think that would be fine. And so great. And so I presumably, therefore, it means you got a lot from it. That's fantastic. We've had well over 2,500 of you taking the tests, the various tests, and even answering the question on the number of ties, which we're getting mixed queries on that, whether or not it's a good thing or a bad thing. But anyway, it was an experiment that Peter did, and I think he was quite pleased with the outcome. Some of you claim they've had to watch him through 3 times to keep counting the ties, because you get so engrossed in what he's saying, you forget to count the ties. So I think that's good. There are, talking about study and everything else, don't forget that all of the ICB examinations and assessments are available to you throughout this. Nothing has disappeared. You can book in online. If you're doing the M8, which is your final exam to get you through to full member, then that is now proctored, which means that you can use your screen, you have the phone beside you, and we just make sure your uncle, auntie, or son, or somebody or other doing the questions for you. And people are telling us they're absolutely loving the proctoring exam. It's great. You don't have to go out in the cold weather. You don't have to go and book into a centre somewhere and worry about who you meet. It's in your home, your office, your living room, wherever you need to be. As long as you're cut off from everybody, you can do that for a couple of hours, then that's great. And we're getting some very good results. So well done, everybody, on that one. Sarah again. Do you ever think you will do a course on research and development? More and more clients asking. Research and development. I think I need a bit more information on that, Sarah, but if it's something that people want, absolutely, we'd love to do it.
There are a lot of, there's a lot of changes to the amount, how you claim back research and development through your tax returns. I wonder if that's what Sarah's asking about. What qualifies, what doesn't, and how you can claim back. So
I mean, one of the things that we've been talking to Jackie about, I don't know how many years now, too many to remember, of course, is the CIS scheme. And I think we put it off waiting for the new one to come in, but when that's going to come in, we have no idea, so that's no good.
Well, at the moment, 1st of March next year.
Yeah, so, well, that gives us plenty of time to prepare for that.
Which is going to hit the VAT deferment payments at the end of March, but it is what it is. We don't know why they've deferred it again.
The other one that everybody wants is any information at all on VAT, so schemes and usages and various other things. So we're working on that. We're working on that. So Sarah just clarifies, as in the tax credit on the CT 600.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah.
Good point.
We need to get a tax. I'm quite happy to say that is above my level of wish of knowledge for tax return.
Above your pay scale, as they say in America.
Above my pay scale, that one, yeah, definitely, most definitely.
We've actually recently taken on an advisor who is a former tax inspector. We've had a couple of those in the past. It didn't always work out well, but this man does seem to know what he's on about. So whilst he still remembers what he did, we're going to be using him a lot. So we are talking to him about VAT and various other things. So we'll be in touch about that. Right, Jackie, thank you very much for joining us again.
You're very welcome.
It's fantastic. We've had a good series of questions there. There will obviously be others tripping along, but we will pass those on to you to be answered. So enjoy your weekend, and everybody, thank you for coming back on again. As I say, this is episode number 46. Some of you have been with us for virtually all the 46. I need to check and see if anybody's done all 46. I must admit I haven't. I've only done 45 because, of course, Paula Beasley-Smith from the council took over for a day, threw me out, and give me a rest. And actually, next couple of weeks, I'm trying to get a few other people to take it on so that I can have a break. And I absolutely love doing these, and it's great to talk to you all. But it comes at a time of day when occasionally I'd like to be doing a few other things. So we'll see how that goes. I'm not sure it'll be successful. And see you next week.
Yeah. Goodbye.
Have a good weekend. Be careful, and don't unlock too quickly. See you soon. Bye.
Bye.